Yo, peep game, man. I need to get something off my chest when it comes to the NBA. And, the lack of defense or like the lack of allowing defense, if you will. I know the playoffs they allow a little bit more physical game, which I think that's why there are basketball fans who do tune in for the playoffs to see what happens. But I want to do I want to do a comparison real quick from this year, okay? From this year to about 10 years ago because I want to show one how much the game has changed due to the three-point revolution and some of the rules that allow offensive players to basically um, do what they want on the court without any intense defensive pressure. It seems. Now I'm gonna do two comparisons. All right. So I'm gonna do this year, and I'm gonna say who's the last in points per game as a team. Okay. For this year is the Memphis Grizzlies, and they are averaging 107 points per game. Okay, that's dead last. Now let's go back about the 13 to 14 season. The LA Clippers led the league in points per game as a team with 108. They would be one of the worst, or like the second or third worst team in scoring in this season. And I do think it's because the defensive rules have changed. The floor has gotten opened up more because of the three-point revolution, and we're not adjusting the defenses to be able to, we have a balance. Now, do I mind seeing 100 plus points being scored? No. As a basketball fan, doesn't annoy me. I see even like the worst team is averaging above 100 points per game. Yes, because it's showing. Yeah, I'm not saying these guys don't play defense, but I don't think these guys can play defense like they could. And even 10 years ago, yeah, I know they got rid of hand checking, but with Steph doing what he did in 2015 when he got his first MVP, that's when a lot of teams started just jacking up a bunch of threes, and it got to the point that if you can't shoot, even if you could do almost everything else well, you had to be either a hella five defender, a vet, or something like that. But to be able to kind of stay in without a legit shot, or if you're like a Hall of Fame level player that lacks a jump shot, like Russell Westbrook, for example. So like I said, 10 years ago, the Clippers averaged 108 points per game. Okay? Another thing I want to get to. So before this season, before the last two seasons, okay, there are only 11 70 plus point games in NBA history. And I think Wilt has 5 or 6 of those, okay? Elgin Baylor was the first one to eclipse 70 in the game, okay? 11 70 plus point games by a player, okay? For 75-ish years. There's only 11 that did that. The last two seasons, 4 people have done it. Donovan Mitchell, Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, and Luka Doncic. I think we have a problem. And again, I get there's scoring explosions, but scoring explosions used to be someone went off at 60, and that was a rare feat. The fact that, Kobe scored 81 was so rare. And then after that 70 plus point game, the next one that came was, I believe, was Booker's in 2017. And then ever since then, you have 4 guys that got that. We got to do something about this defense, okay? We need to adjust the rules somewhat, so these guys can actually kind of go up on shooters. I get giving them the landing space. I get that because a lot of injuries are happening. We all know Bruce Brown, who was known as a great defender for the Spurs during the 2000s, would always put his foot under players after they shoot and it throws their jump shot off because they're worried about landing awkwardly or hurting their ankle or injuring themselves badly. So I get that rule. I'm fine with that rule. I do like the fact that there's a rule, the Reggie Miller rule. You can't kick and force contact. They're not going to call. They're not going to call that. But I have seen guys kick out and do that, and they have been able to get the shooting foul. So there's a lot of inconsistency when it comes to the quote unquote Reggie Miller rule. I mean, the thing I want to say is, if we can't do nothing about like these guys that can shoot, I mean, can we allow a little bit of physicality, just a little bit? I'm not saying the '80s needs to come back and there's a bunch of clotheslining when you go to the hole. I'm not saying that. I'm not talking about anything like the Jordan rules or what the Knicks did and what the Knicks and the Heat did defensively in the '90s. I'm not saying that. And no, I don't want to go into with the 2000s when there's like the scoring was ridiculously low. I don't need great defensive teams like the '04 Pistons holding teams to under under 70 to 80 points in a game. So I don't want that, but I do think the NBA needs to find some type of balance because sometimes this shit is unwatchable. The fact that it has jumped that much and the fact we've had 470 plus point games in 2 seasons should alarm the NBA as their as a product, and they are definitely going to have to do things to keep in the people who are still basketball fans while getting in new blood fans and fans that's coming up because I'm starting to think guys and gals that watch the NBA either their parents were big basketball fans or they had a sibling or someone older in their life that were big basketball fans and things of that nature because there are times I watch a game, I'm just like, shoot the mid-range. The mid-range is right there. It's open. Just shoot it. Yes, I know it's only 2 points, but it's a lot of teams it seems like pick and roll, set picks here, shoot the three. The ball movement, I will admit, is a little bit better with teams because of the revolution of the 3-point shot, and of course the Steph Curry and the Warriors were the ones that were known for that, and I think they were the first purely jump shooting team to win a championship, and everything flipped on its head. So again, I don't know the answers. I don't know if hand checking will help. I don't know if there's a little bit more physicality. I mean, the first thing I can kind of think of is maybe the refs need to swallow the whistle more and not call so many fouls, especially on ticky-tack fouls. Because as much as I might respect Joel Embiid and I like him as a player and all that, that man be doing the most with the flopping and kind of flailing his arms. And a lot of players, and it's not just him, but a lot of players be doing the flailing their arms and selling calls. And we gotta do something about that. And I thought there was like a no flopping rule that was put in place, but it seems like it's not being enforced like it needs to. So I feel like enforced to know that I think what would kind of fix the offensive explosion, the fact that the worst scoring team average over 100 points is a problem. I would say let them play a little bit more, let them be a little bit more physical. I'm not talking about clotheslining guys like you're in the WWF when they go into the hole. I'm not talking about that, or even quote unquote, as Shaq would say, touch them up and knock them down. I'm not saying that, but I do think there needs to be balance, more physicality. Call the flopping calls. Fine. I mean, fine refs I call. Basically, you breathe on star players. They get a shooting foul and they get free throws. I mean, I do think something does need to change, because if this thing continues and it's nothing, it starts turning to just basically layups and threes, and it keeps being like that, and people are ignoring the mid range, even though it's wide open. I believe the NBA will lose a lot of viewers. I mean, they're still trying to get those. They're still chasing the Michael Jordan finals numbers. They're still chasing those numbers. So that's all I gotta say on that. It's the product. I still love basketball. I still have a love for basketball, but man, I think the next 10 years or so, it's gonna become almost unwashable. And to quote, and one thing before I sign off, what Kawhi Leonard said, being against a 4 point line, he's like, no, I don't want that. Shoot, there's a lack of fundamentals in the game today, and that's also a problem. Got great athletes, but in the NBA, I think there's not great quote unquote there's not a lot of fundamentally sound basketball players, especially the American players. A lot those European guys, a lot of them are very fundamentally sound. Luka, very fundamentally sound. Even though Joel Embiid flops a lot, he's very fundamentally sound, footwork wise. Joker, Giannis' footwork is getting there, and he keeps adding to his bag of tools offensively. So that's all I gotta say. And I do also think the AAU boys is hurting them because they're not being coached to learn how to play basketball. Those coaches just like trying to. It seems like they're chasing the sponsor number, the sponsors, and letting these kids high fly out of here. On the boys side. So that's all I gotta say. BA's everybody. Deuces.